You're listening to a Countout Podcast.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Stardom Road podcast here on the Countout Podcast Network. I am your host, as always, Scott Edwards, and with me this week, as is always, Trent. How are you?
I'm good. I've been doing some funkin' since we're doing part 2 of the Q&A. You know, I've been spending a lot of time thinking and asking questions of myself. What is the meaning of life? That kind of stuff.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
If someone asked us that question, I would have been terrified. I'd be like, oh, shit, I don't know.
It's an easy answer. The answer is 42. But the question I wanted to ask to kick things off here is, we're going down the Stardom Road. What kind of car are we driving? And don't say the Stardom tour bus. Yeah, but what kind of car are you driving down the Stardom Road? Are you like a open top?
We're driving an RV. We got an RV. Yeah, because we could switch off and someone could take a nap in a bed or something, like, you know. It's not a dream, but like one thing I want to do is drive cross country in an RV, but I don't actually want to drive. I want someone to drive me.
Yes, no, I get that.
Yeah,
I don't like the idea of an RV because I know I don't fit in the beds. Like, I'm going to be fetal positioned up the wazoo just to fit in the beds that they have in those things.
Well, I'm going to get a nice RV that has a real bed. So
we're gonna fork out, are we? Get the luxury.
Yeah, for a trip, treat ourselves. You know,
nice.
We're gonna treat ourselves. Yeah. I was watching the Cody Rhodes documentary on Peacock. Very good, by the way. And this has to do with this. He was talking about how he was in Hollywood and he pretty much gave up on being an actor, and he drove 48 hours straight back home to Georgia. And I was like, and I was talking about it with my dad, and he was like, "That's ridiculous." I was like, 48 hours straight.
That's unsafe.
I would not have made it. I can't stay up 24 hours straight anymore. He stayed up 48.
I've driven 6 hours straight. That's the most I've done. That was to go to a friend's wedding.
It's a good wedding.
I was best man, so it was better than most.
See, we're doing Q&A right after that, huh?
Exactly, and it's all relevant.
Thank you. I actually, you know what? I added a question of my own. So if you want to think of one to close out this series.
I just asked the question.
Okay, real like stardom question. Then you can by the end of this. So just chime in anytime.
Put the pressure on.
I think it's more fun if we ask our own questions.
Yeah. Who are you driving with from Stardom on the Stardom Road?
It's like the meme that's like, pick a table to sit at lunch. You have the nut jobs over here. You know, you got like DJ Khaled and Nicki Minaj, and then
which faction are you sitting down for lunch with?
Yeah. Not a Oedo Tai. I don't want to get beat up. Thank you for asking. Current Oedo Tai. I feel like Natsuko would hit me with that damn pipe. Anyways, let's get to your food. Let's get to Stardom Road, shall we?
Yeah.
Stardom Road Q&A part B. And we kick off with a question from Ash, a great one that we had to think about a lot. Pick 5 hidden gem all-time Stardom matches for him specifically that people don't talk about but are must see. And this is a very hard question because all-time and hidden gem don't usually go together, but we're gonna do our best. We're gonna do our best. We picked 3 each.
Yeah,
so
and
they're
they don't
getting 6.
Yeah, they don't combine. There's no do-overs
because we weren't gonna pick 10. That's just not happening.
You're being selfish asking for 10. What are you doing, Ash?
I appreciate Ash just saying me. I don't care about it. I want mine. I got you. We got you.
I did ignore that part of the question, so I don't know if these are tailored to his particular interests.
Well, yeah, he likes violence. He likes Arisa Nakajima, Suri. I'm just talking about because surrealism happened recently, and we both talked about how loving the match. So it was
Yeah,
very easy
yeah.
one to pick. But he goes back and sees like the greatness sometimes of Stardom. So
Mhm.
I'm actually happy he asked this one. So let's kick it off. Hidden Gem all-time Stardom matches. Impossible to do, but we are going to do our best. Trent,
Yes.
kick us off.
Well, I want you to guess who I could possibly pick when we're talking
Mayu Iwatani.
underrated, hidden gem. We're talking Jungle Kiona because, of course, we are. And the match I've specifically picked, I've been good. I've only picked one Jungle match, is Jungle Kiona versus Kagetsu for the red belt from January 14th, 2019. I actually think a lot of Kagetsu's red belt matches kind of get overlooked in hindsight. Like, people recognize the championship reign, but you don't hear a lot of people talking about the individual matches.
Yeah.
Maybe outside of the Hazuki match and say Mayu.
Yeah,
But I think
always saw the
outside of
Hazuki
that,
one
it's
there.
kind of like, it was a cool reign, but like the matches aren't discussed. This is actually a really good match, and I think a perfect example of a classic kind of heel versus underdog baby face, and both of them just kind of play their roles to perfection. Fantastic example of how good Jungle is. Fantastic example of how good Kagetsu was.
I love Kagetsu. Hazuki one, like, to me, isn't a hidden gem.
Mm.
But if you haven't seen that, go see that one.
Yeah.
So
It's just like when I think the Kagetsu reign,
Yeah.
that's a match that does get brought up, but I think a lot of her matches don't.
that'll be part of the game. Is like, oh well, if you want to see this one, go see that one too. I think that's a good one. I think when it comes to the Kagetsu reign, you're absolutely right. Like, there is a lot of matches that he had that you kind of like, especially with the reign, because there's a lot of Kagetsu matches that are remembered, but not always when it comes to the reign.
Kind of on either side of the championship reign, I find.
Yeah, a lot after, right? Because that's
Yeah.
when a lot of people got into Stardom.
But you, like, if you came in post Uishino, post Kagetsu, do yourself a favor, watch this match and watch like all of his matches.
all of them.
Yes,
Speaking
every
of which,
single one.
you set me up. You set me up
The alley-oop.
perfectly. So this is a favorite of mine, just like a personal favorite. It is Mayu Iwatani and Kagetsu versus Jungle Kiona and Momo Watanabe. One of Kagetsu's final matches of his career.
Yeah.
One of the many retirement matches.
The original Keiji Muto.
Yeah. I think it is like, it's the ultimate feel good, but it's also just fantastic. Mayu wears the matching gear. One of my favorite gears of all time is just the double. Like, they have there's this great picture, if you find it, it's just them posing together in the gears. It's like, this is phenomenal. One-time gear. She got it for that one match, never to be worn again. And then Jungle and Momo obviously back together again for this match. Jungle and Momo
Green
were such a fantastic team. And then at this point in their careers, they're just at such a different level. So go out of your way to see this one. I think if you want to treat yourself right, watch a lot of Kagetsu's big matches leading up to this.
Yeah.
Watch the title matches. Watch the big matches with Mayu. But go and see those matches and then watch this one. It'll make it that much better. At least watch the Mayu and Kagetsu matches.
It's a fantastic match in of itself.
But
when you have the story behind it, when you have the connections behind it, like if you've seen JK Green team together beforehand, it means a lot more. If you've watched the Kagetsu Mayu Wars, it means a lot more. But it is a match that stands up without those factors. So the only thing is, if you aren't a hardcore fan when you go and watch it, there's a lot of preamble because they're bringing out and doing the photo opportunities with Kagetsu and each faction and everything. But the match itself is top tier for sure.
Next one, I'll go first here. I'm going to do Meiko Satomura and Yuzuki Aikawa from, I have the date. I swear I have the date. March 17th, 2013. I know, Ash, you were asking for a match that is physical, that is violent. These are the two of the best strikers in the game.
Yeah.
And we did a whole episode on Meiko and her greatness, obviously, with the Redom. But going back and seeing the match with Aikawa, obviously, and by this time, Aikawa's at full strength as a wrestler. It's violent, it's nasty, it's great, it's just physical.
Yeah.
It's not like an all-time, it's not like, let me rephrase, it's a all-time hidden gem match in that, you know, Aikawa's run is so short, ultimately, but this is one of the better ones because obviously Mako's at the top of her game too.
Yeah, and it's a good example of both wrestlers again, and that's what I look for in a lot of these hidden gems is what's a match that kind of highlights wrestlers that you might be aware of but maybe haven't seen a lot of, and that's a fantastic example right there. The next match I'm going with are two wrestlers that you are probably familiar with, but you maybe haven't seen this match. We're going back to the 5-Star Grand Prix in 2015. For what is a match that I don't hear people talking about when they talk about the long-standing story between Mayu Iwatani and Io Shirai. It's a 15-minute match. It's before either of them really got launched into not the stardom scene because Io had already been a champion by that point, but like this is before the May Gold match that kind of took the Thunder Rock story and really transported it to next level. This is a match that, like, if you search Mayu versus Io and cage match, it doesn't pop up on their rivalries list. Even under singles match, you kind of got to search around to find. That's why I classify this as a hidden gem. Because for 15 minutes, these two go at it. Yes, it's the earlier versions of them. Mayu's not fully perfected. Io's kind of just one step behind the air that you will see during her second red belt run. But this is a really spectacular match, and you get to see the best of both of them without necessarily the same pressures of the red belt matches. And they just go hard at each other for 15 minutes. It's a lot of fun. It's hard to find. This is one of the first matches I ever saw from Stardom. I remember a Mayu Iwatani versus Kairi match. I don't remember which one, but this match really stood out to me. And without it, I might not be here doing this podcast. So that's why it's on the list.
It's a good one. It's a good one. You go with your third match.
And the final one I'm picking is the most recent of the matches I've picked. And the main reason I'm picking it is because it is from that messy in-between time in the pandemic. I'm actually going the main event of the No People Gate match, Mayu Iwatani versus Saki Kashima. I feel like this show in of itself is just kind of everyone agrees not to talk about it because of the fact that it happened during the pandemic. It's just recognized that, oh yeah, they did a show in Kurikan with no one around. How funny was that? But this match is actually a really good match. It's the nice mix of quality wrestling with just absurdist fun. There's no one in the audience except for Jushin Thunder Liger, basically. They had no one to really play off except themselves. So they used the show kind of like a Ichigai Square Choco Pro match. They just went everywhere and did lots of mayhem. You had Mayu tumbling from the very top of Kurikan Hall all the way down to the steps. You had her doing like the running three on Saki over the top rope into everyone. It's messy. It's like an Oedo type-filled match, but like Saki Kashima in a legitimate main event situation is a rare sight, and it's a lot of fun. These two always play off each other really well, and it's just a match that, like, if you came in post pandemic, you're probably not wanting to go back and watch a no person crowd show, just because like you're just getting bad memories of clap crowds and stuff. And if you're a long-term fan, if you're going back and watching matches, you're probably picking like peak Kurikan Hall crowds and championship matches. This one was just a singles match between recently betrayed Mayu Iwatani and Saki Kashima, and it's clear they went out there to put on a show, have a lot of fun. And the best thing about this, it was free on YouTube and live. It was a very special moment for everyone who was able to watch, and it makes it oddly easy to find in comparison to a lot of these other matches.
My final match is Thunder Rock. I know. Shocked. Stunned. Against Kairi and Mako Satomura. That is from, let me get the exact date to make your life easier. It was, you'd think I'd have these things ready. March 21st, 2016.
Yeah. And this one is on Stardom World if people are curious.
Yes. I love recommending Thunder Rock matches because they were just sensational together, obviously. But you add in the opponents of Kairi, obviously, of the Threedom combo there, and Mako Satomura, who we praised for her run the previous year. It is one hell of a match.
Yeah.
It is violent. It's back and forth. It's Joshi greatness. It's one of those true hidden gems of Stardom, because I think when you think of Stardom, you think of all the big singles title matches, Corkins, like you said. So it's always the title match. It's always the big singles title matches. If you dive into the tags of Stardom's history, you can find a lot of great wrestling. I don't know if there's a hidden gem, so I'm going to just toss in Arisa versus Hazuki from the Wonder Stardom title run. If that's just, because everyone talks about the Tam one. No. Respect the Hazuki one.
Yeah.
But those are some hidden gem matches. Hope we helped you, Ash. Hope you enjoy at least one of them. I hope you enjoy one. But thank you for the question.
Hope you like Mayu, because you got 4 of them.
Well, you signed up for that. Anyways, we move forward here. Any Stardom wrestlers you're a bit unfamiliar with or want to watch more of, or simply one you've seen some of but need to see more of? That's from Xavier. We also have a question later in the show that's about watching someone that we watch post their retirement or leaving, so that's a little different. So this is you're unfamiliar of that I would like to watch more. So I think that's more intriguing and more interesting right now. There's a handful, right? I mean, the fun part about Stardom is how deeply talented their history is, and how a lot of those wrestlers moved on and did great things outside, and I think that's kind of where it falls. Unfamiliar with is tough. I think I can easily answer the you've seen some of, and I always go back to Yoshiko. I've seen a lot of Yoshiko from Seedling, mostly. I've rarely dove into a lot of her Stardom stuff outside of obviously the Mayu match when she came back. But there's some matches from back then. Obviously, there's a reason, she was one of the top stars. She was fantastic. And you should watch all of her stuff from Seedling. She's, has classics there. So she's definitely one that comes into my mind when it comes to I've seen some of, but I'd like to see more of. And then in terms of the just unfamiliar with, thankfully, the way I've watched Stardom is I went back all the way. So it's not like I just have Nanai out of I haven't seen Nanai or something. I didn't see Akawa. I've seen them. I've seen their big matches. I think I'd like to see a lot more of Hiroya Matsumoto's stuff in. I've seen only a handful there, and that more answers the other question as well. But I think a lot of the work she did was so great in Stardom. And obviously she's still great now. But those are probably my handful of answers. I don't have anyone that's I just haven't seen. So
yeah, well, especially with the Stardom Road that we are doing, we are looking back at a lot of historical stuff. So wrestlers that maybe some people aren't fully familiar with, we are kind of diving into, even if they're not the focal point of a topic like a Yuzuki Aikawa. We're kind of taking in ancillary characters around that time. So for me, when I'm looking at this question, I've kind of ended up going similar to you in the wrestler I have seen lots of, but not necessarily in Stardom. And so my nomination is pre-departure and pre-marvelous Takumi Iroha, because obviously I look at 2023, she is one of my favorite wrestlers, full stop, period. But her Stardom stuff that I've watched is all once she's come back as a marvelous wrestler. I'm not familiar with her work as a Stardom rookie, and that's a real shame, given I'm such a fan of hers, and it is something I want to go back and watch, if just to see where was she to where she has now become. So that's really my answer, because there are wrestlers I'm not as familiar with that I've seen enough of to kind of have a good gauge on my thoughts on. And that, again, it kind of ties into the other question we have coming up in wrestlers you've gone back and watched and enjoyed. So yeah, that would be my answer. And if I was picking someone else, I would actually probably say Yoko Bito, because she's someone who, when I first started watching, was there. She was kind of on the tail end. I saw bits and pieces, but I never locked into her as much as I did some of the others around that time. And I would like to go back and watch her with fresh eyes around that scene, because I was watching her. I'm like, she's talented. She just didn't win me over as as a character. So it would be fun to go back with, I guess, slightly more mature eyes when it comes to Joshi wrestling, and see whether she can connect with me in the way that she has with so many other people. Because she's very talented. I just didn't lock in. So they
you were
would be
also
my
at the
two
end
answers.
there. You were at
Yeah,
the
well, that's the
end there
thing.
for her.
Yeah, when Yoko Bito retired the second time, I was watching Stardom. I just sort of came in, and I think because she was on the tail end, it was kind of, well, there's no need to invest in Yoko when she's leaving. Of course, I say that, and I was investing in Io, who would leave, and Kairi, who would leave. And
that's different.
But you know, you had the young Momos and the Jungles and stuff that you were, I'll lock in on the next generation. And I'm very glad I did. But it did mean I need to go back and appreciate Yoko more.
I'd toss Natsuki Tayo in there for me as well.
I mean, we've, especially in those first couple of years of Stardom, with the coverage we did at the start of this podcast, we've gone back and watched a lot of hers, and that's been a real joy for me.
Yeah, especially like with how the high speed's been rejuvenated the past couple of years. Going back and seeing it at its previous height was a lot of fun. Next question is from Jason Hodge. What would Mariah May have to do to become Stardom's most valuable foreigner, and who do you think holds that title currently? Mercedes Moné excluded. I was like, you got me. I'm guessing this is this ever?
Yeah, I'm taking this as ever. Okay. And like, to me, it's kind of, there's been a lot of good foreigners to come in. The real question is how you define kind of the key word there, which is valuable. So, like, most successful, you're looking at Toni Storm, because she won everything that Stardom had to offer, and she holds records that still haven't been beaten, in the sense of the first person to win the 5-star Grand Prix and the Cinderella in the same year. That hasn't been done. That hasn't been matched. But valuable, kind of, ask other questions, like, most valuable, you could argue, would be Priestley, because she was there for quite a few years full time, whereas Toni was on tours, in and out. And that's where, like, you're looking at Mariah May, that's where she can really make an impact, because she's not flying in and out. She is locked in. She's there on every show. That makes a big difference. And you could almost argue, like, I feel like her domestic popularity is at the very least equal to what B. Priestley ever achieved. Now, part of that is because Stardom is bigger now than it was back then. But like, B. Priestley's the red belt champion. I still don't think it quite won over the domestic crowd. I feel like Mariah May is winning over that domestic crowd more than B did. Maybe not more than Toni, but again, you've got the argument of she's there all the time.
I mean, every time that they're doing the check, obviously, and she does her, usual start to the match, the crowd gets a good chuckle out of it.
Yeah.
To answer, what does she have to do? She has to be around. like she just has to be there for a little bit longer. And I think we're locked in. I've already made claims on, I don't know, I don't think it was this show. I think it's the Ocean Cyclone show that I think she's already the best one.
Yes, that was Ocean Cyclone.
Best one of all the foreigners in her current state, because I think Toni obviously left, and she was a better overall wrestler when she left. Mariah May's fantastic now, and the end of the 5-star Grand Prix, I might be willing to say, because she is connecting with that domestic audience. She's connecting with every audience, whether it's like international or national. She's connecting with everyone. There's people making art of her from Japan. Like, you just see all these things, and she's so easy to interact with on social media, which is a big thing as well. It's hard to kind of not respect that. Like, I think she's getting there, and she's very close already. In terms of now, I think you nailed the two. It's probably B and Toni. It's hard to really beat those two. If you want to just go by accolades, it's Toni. If you want to go by overall, it is B.
Viper did a lot of good stuff while she was over there,
Yeah.
but
I think Chris Wolf did a lot of good stuff as well.
I just don't
obviously
think
doesn't
she
have
had
the
the
accolades.
value. Like in terms of like how many people did she draw into Stardom? Probably not as many as the others, but
No.
like her impact is incredibly important to the Stardom
Like,
Boston.
I think Jamie Hayter would have been in this conversation had things went differently, obviously.
But the legs got cut out right before she was about to do that, unfortunately.
Yes. So yeah, I think we kind of covered all that. I think Mariah May will get it. But yes, Mercedes' one match would beat them all. You are correct. I'm happy. I'm happy you said. I'm happy you excluded her because I would have been like,
I think Mariah probably now just needs like a definitive moment.
Yeah.
Definitive moment and match, because like I feel like she's probably made enough money for the company to be on par with a lot of those others already. And if she's there for say another year, like we discussed last fortnight, she will have brought in the money and all of that. It's just a matter of like when you look back at Mariah's Stardom career, what moments and what matches are you pointing at?
Sure.
That's what we need.
Still an incomplete run. It's only been 8 months, not even.
But the fact that after 8 months, a wrestler who had 50 matches under her belt is in this argument legitimately speaks to the work she's put in.
Yeah. Remember when they cheated on the SWA belt with Shuri? I was gonna be a jerk, but I'm not gonna do it. Anyways, we move on. Outside of Freedom, who do you think had the greatest impact on Stardom in the 2010s? That is from 6-Star. It's a good question.
Especially because that 2010s is basically split up in two eras. And really, it's only the Freedom that kind of cross over those eras consistently.
Yeah. Well, taking them out is very important. Because then it's not a fun question. So this is a great question, 6-Star. Thank you for that one.
I have the answer. The inarguable
impact.
answer.
Okay,
it's Rossy Ogawa.
You shut up. I'm thinking
and if you're not accepting that, it's Fuka.
Okay, no, shut up. Shut up. Both correct, but we're going to talk about. We're going to say wrestlers. I
feel for me it's split in two. Again, because of the era situation.
Yeah,
I think it's even Anai Takahashi.
Yeah,
for the first half because of what she did to bring Stardom into where it was and kind of carried them as everyone else was building up.
Sure.
Or if you're looking at the second half, it's Kagetsu. Like I've debated topics of the Stardom Mount Rushmore, and it's those names that kind of pop up, and the other being Yuzaki Aikawa. But I think the biggest argument in this particular question is just because for the 2010 she was there for really 2 of those years.
So I'll combat that though. Does Stardom happen without Yuzaki Aikawa?
Well, that is the question. Yeah,
right.
It's possible that it doesn't.
That Use Upon produce show, you know, we talked about this on the first episode, leads to Stardom eventually. So almost that alone might, be very much.
By the same token, without Nanai Takahashi, do they have the strength to really start up like that?
It's like you almost want to put them together because you needed that combination to make that work. And then Kagetsu's obviously a great choice. That's the first person that came to my mind on the other side. I don't know if there's like a definitive one wrestler because, like you said, it just split into 2, and the only people in between those 2 are the 3 that you took out from us.
And even like you look at the current scene where you could make an argument for like a Tam who has been with the company since 2017 is now leading them as their most popular wrestler, but that's not the 2010s. Like she didn't really hit that mark until the last year of that period.
Right, like if you said Stardom's history, no Freedom, that would be a whole different conversation because of just the past couple of years and who's been at the forefront, right? I tossed Shuri into the conversation. You tossed Tam, like you said, Julia. You toss all these people in the conversation. But I think that's the best way to kind of break it down is the 2 sides rather than one, because there's just not one. There's people that were wrestling on both sides, like an Arisa, right? Like a Saki, but that's very different.
Yeah, and they ultimately didn't have that long-term period enough. Like, as great as Arisa was, like she wasn't doing enough in the first year of Stardom to really lift up for the last 18 months.
Yeah.
Same with Saki.
I'll just shout out Kyoko Kimura because I want to give her respect. I think that's a fun little choice, underdog kind of choice, because she was around for a while there. But that was a good question. You made me think. And then this question's from Blade. This is one that I wouldn't answer on my own Q&A, so we have to answer it here. Stars in the current world of Stardom, you think would sink if given the opportunity to hold the red or white belt? I said 3 swim, and I was trying to avoid sink, but they want me to name someone that I think would sink.
Name names. Be negative, Scott.
You can go first.
Yeah, okay. Pass the buck.
Well, no, because it's my question, so like I gotta. It's directed at me because I didn't answer it.
Well, I mean, I'm gonna piss off people. Momo Watanabe in the red belt spot would sink. Right now in 2023, you give her that title and it does not go well. She can put on great matches, but she just hasn't had the right connection with the crowd and hasn't found the character yet to really lock in. And I know people want her to be in that spot, but I just don't buy it in current Stardom with her current setup.
For anyone wondering, the 3 that I said would swim were Micah in the Wonder, I believe, Hazuki in the Wonder, and Starlight Kid in the Wonder. So the world title is instantly what I think of when I say like a sink, because that is a title you don't just give to anybody, right?
You can take more of a risk with the Wonder.
You can't just give that title. And I think there's a conversation to be had if you look at just the current lineup. And there's something I say how I don't think Micah can win the 5-star main event Stardom Dream Queen. I don't think she can. I don't think, and that's not even winning the title. I just don't think she could do that against Tam. I don't think that's a spot that she's built up for. I think Momo Watanabe is a good shout for the right now. Current Momo Watanabe, I don't think so. I mean, a lot of things would have to go right to get to that even being an instance. You can't give, like, the world title is just so tough. Like, you can name a lot of the roster and it just wouldn't work.
And we're intentionally avoiding like the undercard wrestlers. Like, we're not going to say Momo Kogo would sink in the world title opportunity because, like, of course, like, it's not fair. But we're looking at people who maybe could get that spot.
Right now. I think had Mirai went to the world instead of the Wonder, it would have been an interesting conversation, truthfully. I think going for the Wonder first is better for her.
For sure.
I think, who I do think would swim, I'll add this in on this episode. I do think Mina Shirakawa would swim as World of Stardom champion, though.
Yeah.
If you told me a year ago I'd be saying that, I'd call you nuts. But
because we've discussed could Mina go and challenge Tam, Dream Queendom for the red belt, and
I've talked myself into that. Maybe it should be the route they go.
Yeah, she's popular enough. Because that's the thing. Like, a lot of this roster is talented enough in the ring to be at that level. Momo Watanabe is talented enough to be at that level. But when you're talking about the World Championship, you really are asking who can lead your company forward as its top star, as its main draw. There's a reason why Tam Nakano's got the title and Julia before it.
Based on recency, I did have an interesting thought about Saya Kamatani. Putting the red belt on her right after the record white belt reign, I don't think would benefit her. I don't think she'd sink because she's fantastic. Like, she's a phenomenal professional wrestler and she's unbelievably gifted, arguably the wrestler of the year in 2022. Like, I'm sure she'd figure it out. But had she won the 5-star Grand Prix and won at the end of the year,
it would have been too much in too close. Like, I think people needed a chance to breathe after such a long reign.
Like, and now when she comes back, it'll be a different conversation.
Oh, absolutely.
People have missed her,
That was kind of the risk they ran with Shuri, because that SWA belt wasn't a main event belt, but like, she was getting a lot of high profile matches with it. And she went from there straight into the red belt for a year. And I think there was a concern there that maybe just meant too long at the top. I think Shuri carried it quite well, but that's something you've got to be careful of. I think Saya, like, the rumors of her winning the red belt that would have been a mistake, personally.
Yeah. Now it's like when she comes back, who the hell knows? She could probably win and everyone would be amped because she's back.
It'd be a Mina 2.0 at that point with the sympathy, especially if people had heard the rumors that she was.
Yeah, I'm just penciling in the 5-star for next year instead. I think that's a safe bet.
The Julia treatment.
Yes. But next question. That was a good one, Blade. Obviously, I think we gave you a lot of options while also giving you another swim, which was Mina Shirakawa in the world title spot. The world titles are so hard to book. Like, I'm not hating on anyone. I put over Mike as a Wonder champion, but not as a world champion right now. There's different levels to this.
It's easier to take the risk on the white belt. And I think, like, you look at Sai Kamitani, and she did get her opportunities to main event with the white belt, which was a very smart testing the waters for that future red belt. But 9 times out of 10, that red belt is going to main event. So you've got to have someone who can lead the show and close the show.
I think I said Natsupoi would obviously swim with the Wonder too on that show. But if I didn't, I'm saying it now. Next question from Tim Hunter. Do you agree with Rossi that fighting on the outside is getting too much in Stardom, or do you think it's not fair to blame an unfortunate accident on the style of the match? Tim Hunter, I know your favorite wrestler is Tam Nakano, so this is very directed at her. Yes, I'm done with the ramp spots. I think fighting on the outside is very specific. Like, it should be very specific. And I was joking last episode about EO having the same little formula where she wrestles in the Korakuen crowd. There is too much sometimes. Like, it's just the signature that some wrestlers have. Tam has it. She loves doing the ramp stuff. But I do think it's not fair to blame the unfortunate incident with Saya either, because that was just like, that was a freak thing.
And that's not the first time they've done that spot. They had Mayu and Hanan jump off the same kind of structure months earlier.
Hanan, who doesn't jump off things all that much, mind you. So I think that's worth noting. But yeah, I think it's a little bit of both. I think there is some too much world title matches specifically. That's not just a Tam thing. That's a world title match thing. I watched Julia Shuri throw Julia into the crowd, but that was phenomenal. Match.
And Julia and Mayu Hiki spend their entire championship match on the outside.
I watched Sarah New and Julia also do the same thing, but that was fantastic.
And we loved it.
Yeah, so like it's different. Like, Julia does it in like the Akira Hokuto psychopath way, but it's still too much. Like, don't do it every main event you have.
Yeah, I think this comes down to just maybe planning the shows in the case of, like, you talk to Tam or talk to Julia and say, are you doing an outside spot? And Julia's like, yes, I'm spending 75% of my match outside. And you go, good. Everyone else, stay in the ring.
Yeah.
Like, this is the classic case of you talk about the show structure so you're not repeating things. But, like, if this is a legitimate gripe Rossi has, you're the booker. You can tell these women, stay in the ring. If you've got an issue with it, tell them. They'll probably listen to you. Exactly. I think anything that's overdone or done ad nauseum does become a bit too much. The ramp running spot is a little bit kind of like, okay, yeah, we've seen it, cool. It loses its luster a bit. I think fighting on the outside is fine. Like, I still like the Oedo Tai kind of, destroy all the chairs everyone set up.
Yeah.
I popped.
They got rid of that for a long time, obviously.
Yeah, with pandemic, and as soon as they were probably given the okay, it was like, okay, these chairs are going everywhere. I still like the spot, but it's everything in moderation.
Yeah. I think that's the best way to look at it. Though I'll never get sick of poor Julia getting thrown into a bunch of chairs from
poor Julia. She's the one who initiates it all.
Yeah, I mean, she then hits them with a pile driver through a table, so it's like, yeah, we made up for it. It just depends on the spot, but I think Trent said it well. Like, let's work it out. Like, oh, you're gonna do this tonight? I won't do this.
Yeah,
and I think Tam wrestling Megan Bayne, for example, you shouldn't be leaving the ring all that much, because how the hell are you getting Megan Bayne out unless Megan Bayne's carrying you to the top of the ramp and just tossing you? Which, if that's the case, maybe I'm in conversation.
Yeah,
just because.
And I also don't blame that trend of outside fighting on the Sai Kamitani injury. That was a injury. It could happen on top rope spots in the ring.
I mean, remember when Natsuko got hurt?
Yeah, it's just one of those things that. Well, I mean, that technically happened on the outside too.
No, but that's my point. It's like that was a
Yeah.
freak thing. She just was
Yeah.
getting down from the apron and boom. It's just
If you spend too much time worrying about getting injured with a wrestling match, you'll probably end up injuring yourself on a baseball slide like Pac did in WWE. Like injuries will
that
find
was
you.
nasty though.
Yeah, but injuries will find you in a sport like wrestling. Now, obviously, that doesn't then mean you do ridiculous stunts, but I don't think that stunt was that ridiculous. Again, they did it with Maya and Hanan.
Yeah.
They had the people to catch her. It was just an unfortunate.
Just landed wrong.
It's risky, but I don't think. Yeah,
I don't think I need people jumping off of things all that much.
Mm-hmm.
Ever really? Not something I ever need. Jeff Hardy used to do it. Look at Jeff Hardy now.
Yeah.
It's not a necessary thing.
But I mean, if you're talking unnecessary things in Stardom, the street headbutts are number 1 through 5 for me. Like that's a far more dangerous thing.
You could talk to Julia about that,
okay? And she would headbutt me.
Yeah, and you'd pay for it. Next question, Jay Epicenter. Thank you for the question, Tim. That was a good one.
Yes.
Good conversation for us. What do you think of the partnership Meltzer has with Kanemaru and Taichi? I think it's hilarious. And then do you think Meltzer has anything big left coming as a tag team? So the first part, I just think it's hilarious.
Yeah. Any of the Stardom New Japan collab stuff, I think does wonders for Stardom because they can connect with New Japan, they can be on New Japan shows, but unless you give New Japan fans a reason to care, they're not necessarily going to watch because it is a men's promotion and a lot of them may be coming in not caring about women's matches. But you make these connections, you make the partnerships, that starts to give them reason to follow. And then like, okay, Melty are actually kind of fun in this situation. You watch their matches and then you start being hooked, hook, line, and sinker.
And then do I think Meltzer has anything big left coming as a tag team?
More songs.
Yeah.
They got another EP in them for sure. And I mean, that could then mean an artist title run or maybe another goddess title run for sure.
Yeah.
Once Tam drops that belt, like I think all bets are off.
I'm sure they have plenty of big matches against each other randomly when they eventually go their separate ways before Tam retires. Good question. This is from Midnight Dreary. 2 questions. What do you think is Tomoka Inaba's ceiling? She's gotta accept not being in JTO first. That's step 1, because I think her ceiling as a professional wrestler is limitless. I think she's just phenomenal. You know, she's like the next Shuri type. She like that is her ceiling.
Yeah.
That's pretty good ceiling.
Most
fair?
people would take a Shuri ceiling.
I think that's
she's
a fair
pretty much
ceiling.
got that style.
Just get the hell out of Just Tap Out, please. I know your sister's there, and that's probably keeping you there, but just sign on the dotted line with Rossi. Jesus.
The Tomoka Inaba situation is difficult to predict because, like, I had her signing with
anime promotion.
I mean, that arguably could actually be a better move for her.
We'll
because
see.
the argument you could
we'll see.
Look, it's a riskier move in terms of like, will it actually pay at all? For one thing, but like the big issue is if she joined Stardom right now, I think she would get lost in the shuffle because she'd be coming in at the same time Suzuki came in.
Sure.
So knowing that Rossi will probably bring you in a couple of years anyways, taking a risk on an American-based promotion isn't the worst idea. And I think she's got the style that can definitely succeed in a cross-global situation. The main thing is just continuing to get opportunities to grow. JTO is a little limiting, but she gets plenty of sort of outside chances. It's just a matter of capitalizing on that, growing. Yeah, the ceiling is like a Shuri type, arguably maybe a more marketable Shuri, less murdery, but more marketable Shuri, which is a damn good proposition. It's just a matter of connecting all the pieces to get there.
Yeah, I mean, she's phenomenal. I wish
she's still 18, 19? Like,
nah, she's a little older than that.
She's a little older than that?
Yeah, I think she's older than Suzu, actually. Which
Oh, right. Yeah, she's like 21.
everyone is. She's 21. So, yeah.
Yeah, so 21, that's still plenty young enough to lock in. She's already good enough to be in that discussion that we have with the Azumis and Starlight Kids.
And again, from Midnight Drury, biggest what if in company history? I'm going to say it.
Yeah.
Biggest what if Yoshiko and Yasukawa situation didn't happen?
Yeah. I mean, that's such a fascinating case study because, like, the argument there is, well, was it a powder keg that was going to blow one way or another? But if they found a way to make that work, and you had an Yasukawa kind of leading the company forward, you had Yoshiko who was coming through as a red belt champion, Nanae Takahashi probably would still have been with the company moving forward. The vibes through 2015, if they had solved the issues, would have been a lot better. It definitely then puts the question, how is the Freedom treated? Because they're not required to literally keep the company going. It's a lot of what ifs coming through there, for sure.
Yeah, other what if is what if Io and Kyrie don't leave?
I mean, my biggest what if is the pandemic. What if the pandemic?
Well, yeah. I'm trying to think of like things that were somewhat workable. I can't control that one. That is a good one though. Just because like where would they be? A lot of different things would be answered. Yeah. There's a lot.
They're probably the three big turning point arguments. Because I think like Kyrie and Io leaving benefited everyone. Io and Kyrie got paid. They got global exposure.
Yeah, let's talk to Rossi at the time when Io left. Let's ask him how he was feeling.
Well, yeah, but you look back and like a lot of those wrestlers wouldn't have had a chance to grow into fruition with Io still at the top.
There's another one. What if Bushiroad didn't buy them?
Yeah, I mean, because
no
the big argument there was, well, what if WWE did buy them? What if Rossi wanted to be in the Hall of Fame?
Then I would not be here.
We'd be doing Sendai Road.
Yeah, but I think those are the big what ifs. There's a lot. 6-star. Which 5-star Grand Prix has been the most important in the company's history? Note, I didn't say best or your favorite.
Slap that down.
That's all I'm gonna
Not about favorites.
Most important. I'm gonna go bold here. Maybe not. I'm between two.
Let's hear you working.
Okay, so I'm gonna give you my for instances on both. One of them's 2020 because it established Utami Hayashishita as the main star moving forward that brought them into the next level that they obviously have. They've rode that to greatness. And then the other one's 2021 because that one fully established them.
Yeah.
In that level. I think both. I think I have to almost lean 2020 because 2021 doesn't happen without it, right? Because like Utami becoming champion leads to Utami and Shuri, leads to just everything worked magically because of that 2021, and especially after all that happened earlier in 2020, pandemic, Arisa, Kagetsu retires, Hana. You needed to establish a star like Utami to bring you to the next period of time.
Yeah, I think like I would probably argue 2020 as well because of all those things, and you also had Stardom jumping into doing pay-per-view level shows, and that's Utami at the top of those cards. Like pretty much not every single show, especially when you had like the Julia Tam stuff, but a lot of those shows, Utami was main eventing. And they needed to establish her to be able to carry the company during shows where they're asking people to pay 4,400 yen to watch it from the comfort of their home. 2021, obviously, I think especially because it happens right after Utami and Shuri's popularity exploded with the West. That's very important, but like I think there's maybe a risk of being too Western centric in that focus, because 2020 kind of helped establish Utami through 2021. And Utami Shuri obviously gained a bit from that domestically, but that was more of a international growth off the back of your Dave Meltzers and other people kind of commenting on that 6-star match that 2021 then had to follow through with. So I would lean 2020, even though initially I was thinking 2021.
You're welcome. I paved the way to help that conversation. Good question though, 6-star. I do like you pointing out most important rather than best. Favorite.
I wish I could have more insight on some of the earlier years, because like you could look at Io Shirai winning as kind of a chance to really establish her as the top star in a lot of ways and stuff. But because I wasn't watching back then, and watching those shows is so difficult, you need to buy DVDs to actually watch it. And then looking at the post scene, it's difficult to accurately give thoughts on that right now, unfortunately. So maybe some of the early years might have been quote unquote more important, but at least from what I've been able to take in, they would be my choices.
I think making Utami was very important for everything. So, all right, this is from @Mandato_Danielle. What do you think about Julia and her future appearances in the USA? I know you're asking about the US part only. That's what you meant, but I'm going to jokingly say, what do I think about Julia? I love her. She's great.
You just want to preface everything with that.
And in terms of the future appearances in the US, they were inevitable. She is the megastar. She is the person that everyone says, oh, if she comes to America, she's going to be a huge mega superstar. And yeah, I mean, you watch her, the way she presents herself, who she is, like every big match people think of that involves Stardom, it starts with Julia.
Yeah, it's so important that Stardom have these avenues for the wrestlers to do American tours, because otherwise they risk losing them. We live in a global society, a global wrestling scene, and it's not really like it used to be, where people were always content just to be in their own country. Japanese wrestlers want to be able to perform internationally, and if you don't give them an opportunity to do so, they'll find other ways to do so. Especially someone like Julia. Like if she said to AEW, I want to get out of Stardom, they're offering her a contract. WWE too. Like there are avenues for her to work in America. So this is a way for Stardom to keep her happy, keep those situations going. And there's other wrestlers who want to work internationally too. So this is Utami doing this, Julia doing this is going to help open the doors for those other wrestlers to get those opportunities, especially if Stardom aren't going to run their own American show. We don't know when that's going to happen. You need to give them these opportunities, whether it's with GCW, whether it's with New Japan, whether it's with AEW, or whatever the outlet ends up being. This is the best way to keep your wrestlers happy and in your company. Because TJPW wrestlers can go to America. They get to do these shows. And even though Stardom is the better platform to get big in Japan, you don't want to cut off at the knees that kind of opportunity.
Right. And Julia's, she's the biggest star. They reportedly did an entire different pay-per-view because she was not going to be around for it. So take that for what you will. Next question. What is your favorite era of any faction? Which one do you hold in the highest regard, or that you enjoyed the most? That is Eternal E Pure. I know Trent's answer, but I'm going to let him say it anyways.
Yeah, it's Golden Era Oedo Tai, 2017. Basically, Hana Kimura, Kagetsu, Natsu Samir, Chris Wolf, Tam Nakano. Those five, and like that wasn't all of 2017. They came through at different points. But that group, up until and just a little bit past 2018 too, when Tam left, that group was truly something special. I still hold that as my favorite faction in wrestling. I joined into New Japan and I was right into Los Ingobernables, and then I came across this group and I said, Tetsuya who? I was all in on Oedo Tai, and I have yet to see it matched this period.
Mine is 2021 DDM. The overall greatness of that group. It's the most dominant faction You could just say DDM up until Shuri left, really. Truthfully, that's what I would probably say until Shuri left. DDM with Shuri, because that's like, I compared that faction to EO.
Mm-hmm.
Like that faction was essentially EO for 2 years. They were on top in every single way. They kicked off 2022. Shuri had 3 belts, right? Julia had the tag belts. Julia had the tag belts. Mahime Poi had the trios belts. They had all the belts. Like, they were just such an unbelievable force. They put on so many incredible matches. They were in every main story. There will never be another peak DDM. There won't. And I very much miss that. ALK, kicking ass. Mahime Poi. There's nothing like it. There's just
DDM like in the main events. There's a tag match over
and I loved
World Championships.
And I loved it. So it's fine. They were just a different force. They were the force that helped push Stardom into the new level. When they needed new stars,
they all got put in Donadel.
Here's your group. Here's your entire group. And now look at all of them. They're all doing pretty well, one way or the other. Shout out the retired Jamaica.
Yeah.
She did pretty good. She had the longest retirement road I've ever seen. Every match she had, retirement road match. Oh, let's do 7 retirements. We'll give her an entire show with Pro Wrestling Wave that no one will ever see. All right. Xavi, is Mayu Iwatani the greatest faction leader of all time? She was one of the absolute worst dating back to the Stardom era. But she's constantly saved her faction from the brink of death time and time again, to the point where now Stars is a legit strong unit.
Has she saved the faction?
Well, she's tried.
But is it her that's done it? Like, I think the argument could be made Hazuki is what kept this group going.
Hey man, she beat all of Oedo Tai by herself. She did her best.
Yeah, she did her best. She waited till Natsuko Tora got injured and then capitalized on a week.
Shut up. She still beat them all.
And if she really cared, she wouldn't have waited like 2 months to enact that challenge.
The greatest Stardom.
By then, Starlight Kid was already well and true.
I mean, she's the longest Stardom faction leader.
Yeah,
that definitely helps.
I mean, what's our like categories here for what makes the best faction leader? Is it lowest number of defections? Because it's definitely not Mayu.
No,
is it most successful?
No, because then
faction?
time
not
lasts
Mayu.
too long. Yeah, she's got a tough road here. She's the longest. She has tried to keep them all together. She doesn't ever want them to leave. They just happen to leave.
She just occasionally forgets, oh, you're in my group. That's right. She gets distracted by a new shiny toy.
Who would I consider the greatest faction leader? I mean, Kagetsu is pretty great.
Kagetsu was very strong, and she didn't get betrayed. I mean, Hana Kimura betrayed her, but I mean, like, she left on her own terms and she passed the baton forward, which for a heelish faction is kind of rare. Io Shirai in Queen's Quest, that group got very strong very quickly off the back of her.
I feel like I should respect Momo. She turned on her own. She didn't want to get double crossed, so she said, Nana, I got this. Julia has been great. Obviously her entire faction left her. But that was just because
not the strongest example.
They all wanted honor. But obviously I just talked about them. That 2 years she was the one leading.
I mean, you could argue Shuri. No one's turned on her yet.
I wouldn't turn on her. She is definitely the strongest in kayfabe because
I mean, it's a small faction, and like Amy Sarai under her tutelage got to the mid card, upper mid card.
I can just say LOL Mayu wins and call it a day. Like I can just be real original here. Utami almost lost her entire faction, but she fought back.
She got better.
Yeah. She got so good. She said, "Screw it, I'm going to the USA. Good luck, guys." And
then Queen's Quest proceeded to lose like all of their matches while she was gone.
Correct. The only match they won was against each other.
Sounds like it's cheating. I'm probably going to say Queen's Quest Io Shirai. Just on terms of like success, and not too many people turned on that version of the group.
Yeah, it's probably fair. I'll just say LOL Mayu wins. She's still hanging around.
Yeah.
Sure. Do people leave? Maybe. But is she still on top of? Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I guess you could make the argument that she brought Hazuki into Stars, so like all of the success
She
with
was able
Hazuki
to
kind of
convince
keeping that
Hazuki
group
who hates
together.
fun. She was able to convince Hazuki who hates fun to join the group. And now look at them. It was a good point. Now look at them.
Yeah, like ask this a year ago and like we're laughing in your face, but 2023, the strongest Stars have been since the Arisa Tam era.
So Mayu's the correct answer. Sounds good. Anyways, and the final question of our Q&A is from Dylan Murray. Top 3 wrestlers you've seen solely in retrospect, retired, left before you start watching, that you are particularly fond of.
So this is an interesting one for us because we came into Stardom at different points in time.
Yeah.
So like wrestlers that you might list, I can't because I was watching when they were wrestling. I wouldn't necessarily say there's a lot of wrestlers from that kind of period where I look back on and go, oh, I really wish I was following more back then for them specifically, if I'm being completely honest. But the 3 that I can say I look back on and sort of discovered after they left, I think Aki Yasukawa is front and center. She is someone I didn't get to see at all when I was first started watching Stardom. And like the moment I sort of discovered her, I was like, oh, wow. Okay, this is just someone I would have, if I was watching when she was around, I would have completely locked in and been all on board for. Natsuki Tayo is another one. I only really got into her recently, going back and watching primarily for Stardom Road and really appreciating what she brought in.
You're welcome.
And Kyoko Kimura retired right as I was getting into Stardom. And so I didn't really I saw like probably 1 or 2 matches of hers before she retired, and I didn't really get to take in. So they would be my 3 because I started watching 2016, 2017.
Time out, I just blacked out. Natsuki Tayo, Aki Yasukawa, and who?
Kyoko Kimura.
That makes sense. Obviously, if you've heard me talk about this, I came in at the start of 2020.
Yeah.
So pretty much no one was wrestling at that time. And then when I was watching through, I was like, oh, this Arisa Shiki's pretty cool. Can't wait to watch her. She's one of my favorites. She retired. So that was hurtful. So I guess she would technically be number 1 because she's one of my favorite wrestlers ever, and I never saw to see her wrestle live once. Kagetsu.
Yep.
Easy answer for me. This is really easy for me. This isn't difficult by any stretch of the imagination.
But it's more narrowing it down for you, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to include Io and Kairi because I watched a lot of them before. Technically, I watched Stardom. Yeah. That's how I got into it. Technically, Io Shirai was my favorite wrestler, and that's how I started watching Stardom. So take that for what you will. There's so many. Good content here. I know. I try. First 2 are easy, First 2 are like, I do love Aikawa. Big Aikawa fan. That's way back. Had no shot of watching her.
I mean, it counts.
It does. That is true. It does. She's probably my choice. Yeah. I'm gonna go with her. Yoko Bito. Also respect, but I'd go Kagetsu, Risa, and Aikawa.
Yep.
Because Aikawa just jumped off the page for me when I watched, because it's like the violence in her kicks. Like her matches were just so quick, but they were so effective when I was getting into Stardom, and I just was like, yeah, this is the one. And then I learned that she had like a handful of matches and then said see it, and I was like, god damn it. Risa, I guess, technically the same too.
I was going to say you have a bit of an affinity for those kind of
At
wrestlers.
least we got Kagetsu. But thank you for the question. So now I said me and Trent will ask one question at the end of the show since we got here. It was about the same time as last episode. So thank you everyone for timing these out perfectly for us. So my question,
What you got for me
for the crew is, what is your favorite show in Stardom history?
Ooh,
I think it's a fun one.
Yeah, look, I'm going to be honest. It's from this year. It's All-Star Grand Queendom, and yes, look, there's two reasons for that. Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, it was a fantastic show, like top to bottom, an amazing card. But more importantly, I was there. And I'm always going to have a bit of more of a soft spot. Shows are going to mean more for me if I was there at the events. And I've been to 4 Stardom shows actually. And that is the one that will probably stick with me the most in terms of like just experiencing the show, because when I went to the 2018 show, which was the Dream Slam show in Korakuen Hall, I still was learning my way through the roster a little bit back then, and so I didn't appreciate seeing some of the wrestlers I got to see as much as I probably should have in hindsight. But yeah, so All-Star Grand Queendom for the combo of bloody amazing show and bloody amazing show from the seats that I had in the venue.
So I have like 3 instances here, and I want to explain them. My first is All-Star Dream Cinderella.
Yep.
That was the first live Stardom show I ever watched. So like it has a special place for me. Obviously it was a great show in itself. But it was like just watching live Stardom for the first time. I just vividly remember like the emotions that with Tommy and Saya just knocking out of the park. Julia and Tam and the emotion of that, Yoshiko and Mayu having just such a sensational match, another emotional match. Azumi and Natsupoi just absolutely killing it in the first match. So that jumps off the top of my head. The 2022 5-star Grand Prix final is just one of the best nights of wrestling I ever watched. The Julia story, obviously, the Mayu and Starlight Kid match, Mike and Himeka for the first time, on and on and on. Hazuki and Momo, list goes on. And then, of course, All-Star Grand Queendom. I mean, it's the greatest show in Stardom history. It is the greatest, it's the biggest, it's the most important.
Because I was there?
No, absolutely not. You might have been the tallest person there. That's possible.
Ask the person who was sitting behind me.
But it was everything. Like there's one blemish on that show. There's one blemish, and it's just because of the finish. Otherwise, everything on that show is perfect. It's that's still probably going to be my favorite show, just because of like the excitement levels and the emotion, right? Mercedes and Mayu. I mean, come on. Mina and Sai and what they did. Julia and Tam, what they did. Up and down that card. Micah and Himeka. It's a all-star lineup. And they just killed it. Yeah. So that's probably ultimately mine, but I wanted to give everyone like my top 3. One's just the emotional level, the other 2 are just like holy shit. But so there's that. So Trent, what's your question for the crew?
So yeah, you put me on the spot at the start, but thankfully something you said during this conversation actually sort of twigged the question for me. As when you were talking about the Mayu Iwatani Kagetsu tag match against Jungle Kyona and Momo Watanabe, specifically Mayu wearing the Kagetsu gear. So my question is, what costume change do you want to see? Like if they brought back the costume change battle royal, or someone decided to dress up as one of the other wrestlers as a bit, what do you want to see?
That's a good one. Who do I want to see? I always have Momo as Tony Storm stuck in my head when I think about that. I don't know why. She did a very good job at that.
Yeah. And then Tony Storm as Minoru Suzuki.
Yes, that's that's a classic. I'll keep it to Stardom, like dressing as Stardom. Utami dressing as Tam.
Just lean fully into the Utami.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can just see it. It would be the funniest thing of the show. It wouldn't be topped.
I can actually really picture that too.
Like the absurdity of it would just be so worth it.
Yeah. The one I really want to see, and this is just
singing
current.
the song.
Of course.
Sing the song.
We know she can sing the song.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Tam wasn't very happy about it.
The one I really want to see, just based on current Stardom situation, is I would love for Saki Kashima to dress up as Shuri. Just now that she's training with God's Eye, just kind of lean fully into the bit, come in with the full get up. That would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, that would be good. That would be really good. I'm trying to think of there's a few that would be really good. That I think we got like the top two though, like just of entertainment levels.
Yeah. I'd like to see. Oh, you go.
May, Sarah, and Mariah May. Just
yeah.
They'd swap, like they specifically swap, so they're just being each other. I think that would be very funny.
I would really like to see Julia do Starlight Kid. Just because she's always ripping that mask off when she gets the opportunity, so it'd be fun to see her. Yeah. Of course, the costume change battle royal is difficult now because there's no other mask wrestlers for Starlight Kid to dress up as. Like she had to kind of do Mayu Iwatani entrance gear previously, and now she'd kind of have to do that again.
Yeah, she would. Yeah, I think we got the good ones. So I'll wrap up the show here. Trent, this is, I'll admit we recorded a little far in the future, folks. So do you have anything to look forward to in terms of
when
content?
this comes out, I think there's a new episode of ChocoCast either coming out or about to come out, or it'll be around that time period. It's my Choco Pro Gatto Move podcast on the Wrestling Network. So check that out. You can find me on Twitter, X, whatever it's called, at One Up Culture. Whatever I'm doing will be found there.
Good sell. You can follow me at Scott E Wrestling. I'm previewing every Stardom 5-star match with a tweet on Twitter, so there's some sort of content.
With a what on what?
Sorry, with a post on X. You can also check out all my reviews that I'm doing for Voices of Wrestling every even day. So that's definitely the content that I'll have. I'm sure I have some interviews in the work, but they might be old by then. So I'm not even going to try to guess. Or they may not have happened. So we're just not even going to assume. But we'll be back next time with another episode of the Stardom Road. We'll be back on track with our usual lineup.
Not thank listening to any of you people. So all us.
Thank you to everyone that sent questions. You gave us 2 shows of a lot of fun, made it easy for us to just sit back, not have to do too much research, have a blast.
A nice mix of questions too, and type and style. I was actually really happy with what we got. So thank you guys. Legitimately, thank you.
Yeah, we won't do that. We won't do Q&A too much with this series. It's more of a 5-star cop-out than anything else, but there's
a lot of wrestling to watch right now.
There is. So we really, really, really do appreciate it. And like I said, we'll be back next time. Check out all the podcasts on the Count Out Podcast Network, like Ring Post Radio. And yeah, we'll be back. We'll see you next time. So until next time, see ya.
Hi guys, this is Lauren.
This is Michael.
And this is Your Dose of Death podcast. If you're genuinely curious about the world of deathmatch wrestling, look no further, as me and Mike have you covered on all things in the world of deathmatch wrestling, whether it's
interviews,
show reviews, or everything in between. We have you covered on all things deathmatch wrestling, whether it's past, present, or future. And you're probably wondering where you can go support us. You can find Your Dose of Death podcast on all major podcast platforms, especially along with the Count Out network of podcasts. And also, you can support us on the Count Out Patreon, as we have exclusive content only on the Patreon for all of our listeners. We hope that you go listen to Your Dose of Death podcast very soon.
And see you at the shows.
This has been a Count Out Podcast.